Ladies and gentlemen, purpose is never born in convenience. Destiny is not discovered in comfort. When God is about to elevate a woman, when he is preparing to entrust her with something big, divine, and history shifting, there will be signs. Not always loud, not always dramatic, but undeniable to the discerning soul. When God is about to bless a woman with something big, the first and often most subtle sign she experiences is a divine disturbance in her spirit. This is not an emotional reaction or a fleeting moment of dissatisfaction. It is a spiritual signal that something deeper is shifting. She may not be able to articulate it with words, but she knows something is happening inside her. Places that once felt like home now feel strange. Conversations that used to excite her now feel draining. Activities she used to enjoy no longer hold her attention. It's not depression. It's not confusion. It's transition. God often allows divine disturbance to unsettle her because elevation requires separation. Before a seed can produce fruit, it must go through the breaking process beneath the soil. Likewise, when a woman is on the verge of stepping into something godly, ordained and beyond her current level, he begins to stir her spirit in ways she cannot ignore. This stirring disrupts the norm, not to frustrate her, but to prepare her. It is God's way of calling her out of what is familiar, so he can usher her into what is destined. Comfort is the enemy of growth, and God knows that in order to expand her, he must first disturb her. This disturbance may come in various forms. She might start questioning the job she once believed was her dream. She may feel disconnected from people she once leaned on for support. Even her surroundings may begin to feel out of place, as if her soul is telling her, "You don't belong here anymore." It's not that the environment changed, it's that her assignment within that environment has expired. That expiration creates tension, and in that tension, God is speaking, not always with words, but with divine discomfort. At times, she may feel as if she's doing something wrong, because everything feels out of alignment. But that's where discernment is crucial. The lack of peace isn't punishment, it's preparation. God often disturbs the water before he parts the sea. He shakes foundations not to destroy, but to build something new. A woman in this stage might wrestle with doubt, feel emotionally volatile, or sense a heavy longing for something more. Even when she can't define what that something is, this is her spirit responding to a higher call. Her soul is being awakened to new dimensions, new roles, and a new season that her current self is not yet fully ready for, but is being prepared to handle. What makes this stage both powerful and challenging is that no one around her may understand it. To others, it may seem like she's pulling away or acting strange, but what they don't see is the inner work God is doing. The Spirit of God begins to excavate the old thought patterns, uproot limiting beliefs, and stretch her vision beyond what she thought was possible. In this place of divine disturbance, identity is clarified, vision is sharpened, priorities are rearranged. She realizes she can no longer settle for average when God is calling her to abundance. This divine unrest isn't a detour, it's the beginning of destiny. It's God's way of alerting her that her current container can no longer hold what he is about to pour into her. The shaking is intentional, the stirring is sacred, and though it may feel uncomfortable, it is undeniably necessary. When God is preparing to bless a woman with something significant, one of the most telling and transformative signs she will encounter is isolation. This isn't a season she chooses, it's a season that chooses her. Friends begin to fade into the background, invitations stop coming, the phone grows silent, people who once depended on her become distant, and while she may initially interpret it as rejection or even punishment, it is actually divine separation. God is not being cruel, he is being intentional. Before he brings her into a place of visibility and blessing, he hides her so he can shape her. Isolation is sacred. It is the space where clarity is born. In the noise of life, the voice of God is often drowned out by opinions, expectations, and distractions. So when heaven is getting ready to release something big into a woman's life, God often pulls her back so she can hear clearly. It is not the absence of people that defines this moment, but the increase in spiritual sensitivity that follows. She starts to hear differently, see differently, think differently. What once distracted her now feels irrelevant. God is redirecting her focus inward, so he can build her from the inside out. In isolation, she is stripped of external validation. She is forced to confront her own reflection without applause, without affirmation, and without the comfort of being understood. It is here that she begins to learn the language of divine intimacy. She starts to lean more into prayer, not as a ritual, but as a lifeline. Worship becomes her weapon. Scripture becomes her foundation. And through these solitary moments, God begins to reveal what crowds could never teach her, her true identity. He begins to whisper things that only a quiet heart can receive. This is not silence, it is sacred conversation. There is a misconception that isolation is loneliness, but the two are not the same. Loneliness is the absence of connection. Isolation, when orchestrated by God, is the presence of refinement. He isolates not to abandon, but to reveal. In this space, the woman begins to see the hidden strengths within herself. Her resilience surfaces, her creativity blossoms, her calling becomes clearer. God uses this time to remove the noise of the world so she can hear the call of heaven. It is a divine cocoon where the transformation from who she was into who she is becoming takes place. In this season, she may find herself misunderstood, even by those who once walked closely with her. That, too, is part of the process. God sometimes blinds the people around her so they don't interfere with what he's doing in her. They don't see the value of this season because they weren't called to walk in it. This forces her to rely more deeply on God, to trust in his presence when no one else is present. And in doing so, she learns that what she needs most is not validation from others, but alignment with him. During this isolation, God often reorders her priorities. Things she used to chase no longer feel worth the effort. Relationships she once fought to preserve no longer feel essential. She starts to become more protective of her time, more intentional with her energy, and more discerning about her environment. The woman who emerges from this season is not the same as the one who entered it. She carries weight, wisdom, and a walk that reflects her time in the secret place. The isolation, while painful at times, becomes the womb for something extraordinary. When God is preparing to bless a woman with something big, her spiritual appetite begins to shift in a way that she cannot explain through logic or routine. It starts as a quiet yearning, a subtle tug that gradually grows stronger until it becomes impossible to ignore. What once satisfied her spiritually begins to feel shallow. Sermons that used to excite her now seem elementary. Devotions that once gave her peace now leave her wanting more. It is not that the content has changed. It is that her spirit has grown. God is expanding her capacity, and to do that, he must first awaken her hunger. This hunger is not emotional. It does not come and go based on circumstances. It is a deep and holy craving for more of God, more of his voice, more of his word, more of his presence. She finds herself longing to be alone, not out of withdrawal from others, but because she senses that something sacred is trying to emerge from within. There is an urgency in her spirit to seek, to listen, to understand. Her time with God shifts from duty to desire. Prayer becomes less about asking for things and more about aligning with his will. Worship becomes more than a song. It becomes a surrender. As this hunger increases, so does her discernment. She begins to notice things she didn't notice before. Scriptures she's read 100 times suddenly reveal new meaning. Words spoken by others begin to carry weight or feel empty, depending on the source. Her sensitivity to the spiritual realm sharpens. What once seemed like coincidence now looks like divine instruction. God is not just expanding her appetite, he is training her to handle revelation. The more she seeks, the more he trusts her with insight, direction, and responsibility. Her growth is not just emotional or intellectual, It is spiritual. This season of increased spiritual appetite often comes with a sense of urgency. She may not understand why she suddenly feels the need to fast, to study, to pray in the middle of the night. But something within her knows that preparation is happening. This hunger is the precursor to purpose. God is getting ready to feed her spirit because what He is about to entrust to her will require spiritual maturity. Blessings without preparation become burdens, but when God cultivates hunger before the blessing, He ensures she has the strength to carry what He gives her. Increased appetite also comes with a refining process. As her taste for deeper things grows, her tolerance for distractions decreases. She no longer wants to entertain what doesn't edify. Gossip becomes repulsive. Drama becomes exhausting. Shallow relationships feel like weights. This is not arrogance. It's alignment. Her soul is being calibrated to function at a higher frequency. God is tuning her into His voice so that when He speaks, she does not mistake it for her own thoughts or the noise of others. She starts to live differently, speak differently, even walk differently, because what's happening inside her begins to reflect on the outside. Her hunger also makes her more humble. The more she receives, the more she realizes how much more there is to learn. She stops pretending to have all the answers and starts positioning herself as a student of the Spirit. God begins to connect her with resources, mentors, teachings, and revelations that accelerate her growth. She's no longer satisfied with spiritual crumbs. She's preparing for the full meal. And in this preparation, she becomes the kind of vessel God can use for significant things. When God is preparing to bless a woman with something significant, one of the unmistakable signs is the sudden and often overwhelming rise of unusual resistance. This resistance does not come from random places. It is strategic, targeted, and often intense. It may manifest in her relationships, her finances, her health, her mind, or even in her sense of identity. She may feel as though she's walking uphill with a weight on her back, pushing through obstacles that seem to come out of nowhere. The reason for this resistance is not because she is off course, but precisely because she is on it. Hell doesn't react to irrelevance. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. When opposition arises with great force, it is usually a confirmation that something divine is near. This kind of resistance is different from the ordinary trials of life. It has a spiritual texture to it. Things that once flowed with ease begin to meet strange delays. Conversations that should bring peace instead stir confusion. People she trusted begin to misunderstand her, distance themselves, or even turn against her. There is a strange warfare around her that makes no logical sense. But in the spirit, something is happening. The resistance is a clue that God is shifting her, stretching her, and preparing her for a new weight of glory. The adversary, sensing what is coming, attempts to destabilize her before she receives what was ordained for her. During this time, the woman may question herself. She may wonder if she missed God's voice or made a wrong decision. But what she doesn't always see in the moment is that this resistance is refining her faith. It is in the resistance that her roots grow deeper. It is in the pressure that her spiritual muscles are strengthened. This isn't just a fight, it's a forging. God allows the fire not to burn her, but to purify her. Every challenge she faces in this season is part of her training for the blessing that is on the way. She is being made ready in the battlefield before she ever steps into the spotlight. One of the most painful forms of resistance in this season is emotional and internal. She may feel doubt rising up where confidence used to live. She may feel spiritually dry even though she's praying more than ever. These are not signs of regression, but signs of elevation. God often removes feelings to mature her faith. He allows her to walk in the dark to teach her how to listen more closely. Her emotions may scream confusion, but her spirit is learning trust. She begins to realize that faith is not about how much she feels. It's about how much she follows, even when nothing makes sense. Sometimes the resistance becomes public. People begin to talk. Doors that seemed open suddenly slam shut. Projects fall apart. plans unravel, and yet in all of it there is a divine thread holding her together. God is using what the enemy meant for harm to position her for a testimony. The resistance becomes her resume. The battle becomes her background for the blessing. She learns how to stand, how to pray, how to declare, and how to press through. The woman who emerges from this season of warfare is no longer easily shaken. She has learned how to wear armor in the unseen. This resistance is not wasted. It is not random. It is orchestrated with the precision of heaven. Every tear, every setback, every attack is being recorded in the heavenlies as evidence of her preparation. What she is fighting is not just about what is happening now. It is about what is coming next. When God is preparing to bless a woman with something big, she begins to receive divine downloads that surpass her understanding, ideas, visions, and impressions that feel as though they've come from a place beyond her own intellect or imagination. These moments often come when she is not actively seeking them. She could be going about ordinary routines, sitting quietly, or even resting, and suddenly she becomes aware of thoughts, pictures, or instructions that grip her spirit with weight and clarity. These are not casual ideas. They carry a presence. They feel too big to be from her, too detailed to be random, and too persistent to ignore. The divine downloads often appear as assignments. God begins to reveal things that stretch her, that call her into new territory, that provoke her to rise to a level she had not previously considered. She may feel overwhelmed, not because she doubts God, but because she realizes how far the vision is from her current capacity. This is by design. God doesn't give instructions that match where she is. He gives instructions that pull her into where He's taking her. These downloads are not meant to flatter her. They are meant to form her. They are not rooted in her comfort. They are rooted in her calling. She may start to see visions in prayer, dreams at night, or receive phrases in her spirit that she cannot shake. God begins to speak through symbols, patterns, and repeated messages. There's a divine consistency in what she hears. Confirmation comes in unexpected ways, through scripture, through a sermon, through something someone says in passing that resonates deeply. She begins to notice themes. She may keep hearing the same word, the same idea, the same assignment over and over. This repetition is not coincidence. It is God affirming that He is speaking, and He expects her to pay attention. These divine downloads are not always about external success. Sometimes God begins with inward renovation. He may reveal a new mindset she needs to adopt, an old belief she needs to break, or an area of unforgiveness she needs to release. He begins to download wisdom that prepares her heart before He gives her the platform. Often what God is about to do through her must first be done within her. The woman may find herself journaling more, writing down things that don't make sense now but will make sense later. She senses that heaven is speaking, and she doesn't want to miss anything. As these divine instructions continue, she may also feel tension between what she sees in her spirit and what exists in her natural environment. Her current resources may not match the vision. Her current support system may not understand the weight of what she's receiving. She may even hesitate to share it, knowing that it sounds too lofty, too ambitious, or too far removed from her current circumstances. But the divine download is not concerned with her present. It is designed to align her with her future. God often releases vision before provision. He gives the blueprint before He gives the bricks. In this process, God is trusting her with secrets from heaven. He's pulling her into partnership with His plans. These divine ideas are sacred. They are not to be casually shared or prematurely exposed. Some visions are meant to be prayed over in private before they are revealed in public. The woman begins to learn the discipline of stewarding revelation. She discerns when to speak and when to stay silent, when to move and when to wait. She understands that the download is not the destination. It's the beginning of a process that will require obedience, persistence, and faith. When God is preparing to bless a woman with something big, He begins to increase her capacity for obedience in ways she has never experienced before. This obedience is not just about following rules or avoiding sin. It becomes an inner prompting, a deep conviction to follow His voice even when the instructions are uncomfortable, unclear, or completely contrary to logic. She starts sensing that certain choices are not optional anymore. There's an urgency in her heart that tells her, you have to move. Even if she doesn't fully understand where she's going or what the outcome will be. This kind of obedience doesn't come from pressure. It flows from alignment. Obedience in this season often feels radical. God may instruct her to walk away from relationships she once fought to keep, to leave environments she once thought were permanent, or to say no to opportunities that others would call blessings. She's no longer responding to what looks good. She's responding to what feels right in her spirit. Her discernment becomes sharper, and with that discernment comes a responsibility to act according to what God reveals. Delayed obedience starts to feel like disobedience. Partial obedience no longer satisfies her soul. She begins to understand that full surrender means trusting God with both the instruction and the outcome. As God increases her sensitivity to His voice, He also tests her in the small things. Before He releases the big blessing, He watches how she handles the quiet promptings. He may ask her to give something away, to apologize even when she wasn't wrong, to pray for someone she doesn't like, or to serve in places where she won't be seen. These assignments are not about performance. They are about posture. God is shaping her heart to respond quickly, humbly, and fully. The more she obeys, the more He entrusts to her. Obedience becomes the key that unlocks the next level of her destiny. This type of obedience also requires her to confront fear. The instructions God gives her may challenge her insecurities, her sense of control, or her fear of failure. Yet in the face of fear, she finds grace to move anyway. She may tremble as she says yes, but she says yes. She may not have all the answers, but she follows the last instruction until God reveals the next. This walk is not about confidence in herself. It is about confidence in the one who called her. She learns to obey with tears in her eyes, to move forward even when she doesn't see the full picture. During this season, obedience also involves waiting. Sometimes God will say, "Not yet," and her willingness to be still becomes just as important as her willingness to move. She realizes that obedience isn't always active. Sometimes it's about restraint. Holding her tongue when she wants to respond, staying in the process when she wants to escape, trusting God's timing when everything in her flesh is crying for speed. Waiting becomes worship when it's rooted in obedience. She begins to see that her ability to surrender control is evidence that God is maturing her for something greater. There's also a pruning that takes place through obedience. God may ask her to let go of things she still loves, not because they are evil, but because they are no longer part of where she's going. It hurts, but she obeys. She may not understand it in the moment, but she senses that obedience is protecting her from detours she cannot afford. With each act of obedience, she becomes lighter, freer, and more aligned with the future God is calling her into. Her heart becomes more tender, her ears more attentive, and her spirit more yielded to His leading. When God is about to bless a woman with something big, He does not simply drop the blessing into her lap without preparation. He cultivates her, stretches her, refines her, and aligns her. Each sign she experiences is not random but purposeful. The isolation is a divine separation to deepen her intimacy with Him. The hunger is a spiritual awakening that pulls her closer to His will. The resistance is evidence that she is on the brink of something powerful. The visions and divine downloads are blueprints from heaven for her next season. The stretching of her obedience is His way of ensuring she's ready to carry what He's about to entrust to her. God doesn't just prepare the blessing for the woman, He prepares the woman for the blessing. And when the preparation is complete, what she receives will not only elevate her, it will impact generations. She will emerge not just blessed, but transformed, aligned, and walking in divine purpose with clarity, power, and unshakable faith.